the previous video I showed you guys how to create the low poly pillow. So literally now what I did was actually I just smoothed it, and I want to do adjustment to the pillow using a tool called Deformer tool called Lattices, which is quite useful to push a little bit stuff with the organic shape. I'll go ahead now and show you how to use this function. I'm going to separate it first, and then for this sofa like this, right, sometimes we notice that the sofa it tends to have the deform when it close to the edges, because again this is actually a very soft object. So a lot of times we want to push the shape a little bit more, so we want to adjust it with the deformer tool. So what I'm going to use now actually is a tool called Lattice. It's under Deform. So this is actually a cool tool to wrap things and also to adjust things, which is a bit organic. Let's see if I will choose this pillow, right, and then I'll go ahead and choose Lattice. So the Lattice, if I will check the function, literally this is how it looks like. Actually there's not a big issue here, because you can go ahead and create the other tools also. So once you have this, you can see the subdivision is happening here. So this is what it looks like. You can actually create, let's say, more subdivision to the pillow. So when you have something like that, right, let's say now you want to adjust it, right, if I were to right click and choose Lattice point, so now what I would do is when I tweak, let's say, this Lattice point, the sofa will adjust it. It will follow try to follow the Lattice point accordingly. So if I'll turn on, and this is how it looks like. In this case, right, I'm trying to, let's say, if I were to move this entire thing out to mesh like that, it's very useful because I actually can move the deformer. So this is literally how I would use this one to adjust things if it's already smooth, so I can actually adjust to get a bit more deforming feel to it. So if I were to adjust, let's say this one to push inside a bit more, I get the feeling of that sofa pushing a bit down in, and I'll check, and you get the feeling that, oh, it looks like maybe somebody has seen this sofa before. In this case, right, once you are done with the deformer, right, as long if you don't delete history, the deformer will still appear. So one of the things about that is in Maya, right, you literally need to delete history whenever you can, okay? Because if you want to have a clean file, it would be best is always get a chance to delete history. So now if I want to delete history, how I will do that? Because the deformer will follow you, and you have this shape here. So what I do actually, I go to edit, and I go to delete all by type history. So this should delete everything that's deformer history. So now I actually can have my normal pillow already, and you see the shape deform compared to the previous one. So this is how actually you're able to create a little bit organic shape of kind of pillow. So that is one thing that I actually do to get more organic shape. So another thing I will also talk a bit more is actually, you notice actually I did a bit more optimization on my sofa base. What I did was actually I'm trying to connect as much line as possible, like the triangle line here. Why is the purpose? Because I'm trying to connect and trying to reduce polygon count as much as possible. So remember the previous smoothing base, right? So it's kind of about 7,000. I'm able to reduce it until 700. So that is actually a very huge reduction, and it still maintain the quality. So you can see that when we're doing games, we have to be very careful about polygon count. So we do not want to go super crazy with the polygon count, but nor we want to lose the form that gives the shape that we want. So in this case, it's actually quite optimized really in terms of finishing, right? If I were to check the entire thing, and this is the result, and this is like only 2,000 faces for the entire sofa, which is still have this higher polygon. And the reason why you notice here I don't delete the pillow, the cushion, is because I probably want to keep the form for the pillow, because it's kind of like still okay if I were to maximum delete maybe a few of it, but I don't want to lose the form, the kind of the softy form of it. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm still keeping most of the lines for the pillow, which is still okay because the difference is like only 200 polygon, and it's not a lot. Considering this object is still a low one. Again, the question is what kind of project you're making. So if you're making, let's say, a mobile game and you're making those like QQ style, it's an isometric game, and maybe few hundred poly, the object is already a low poly already. And then if you're making a first person like the Division, like Uncharted, or maybe those kind of games that come out in upcoming PS5, maybe few thousand is already low poly. So again, it's the question of what kind of game that you're making, what kind of game project you're making will be always the first question. So in this case, we are making a more kind of like towards realistic kind of feel, but still again we can still achieve low poly. That will be the idea behind the whole process of modeling. When we go zoom out, it's still workable. When zoom in, it's still workable. And in cases that those games we do first person, third person, we have another game mechanics kind of method to optimize. It's called LOD, which is level of details. When we go far right, it becomes low poly. When you can't go near, it becomes high poly. So it actually swapped the model in the game. So this will be a function that I'll be talking about when you guys have the chance to touch advanced game engine which allows LOD. Alright, let's conclude that what you actually have learned and done for the so far. So literally, I'm going back to where I showed you in the beginning, where I got 3 iterations of the same so far. So rather than talking as iteration, it's actually rather a process by itself, which I actually start with the original, which is the low poly, which is about 800 polygon for the entire so far. So literally it's very optimized in a way that is suitable for, let's say I want to use a top-down isometric view, and this is probably maybe is okay because it's not going to zoom in. Okay, then from here, the way I do the topology, the edge flow, allows me to go to turbo smooth to smooth into a bit more high poly. So this one, if after I high poly is about, let's say 3000 plus. So literally I just high poly once only, compared to the previous version that I actually did 2. So sometimes one is really good enough already. So the option for here, the smooth here, you can choose what the option you want. Okay, usually 1 is be good enough to get the result. If you're using 2, means that you have to delete more lines. Okay, so in this case I actually reduce a bit, and I did using Division 1 for the final case of this so far. Once I did the so far and the file, actually a lot of these lines that you saw here, the edges, right, it's actually not very useful to keep because it doesn't create the form of the object. That's why when I come up to the third process optimization, so you can see is the compare between the two, where all this line has been removed. Has been removed to make a low poly version, because now this one, the whole thing is about 2000 plus, the whole thing this is 3000 plus. I literally reduce more than 30% of the entire polygon count. So now I'm looking at this, and this is how I optimize it. You can check, compare wireframe, so wireframe mode, and what I did was I combined some of the vertices here to become one line. This is also one way of optimization, because when you want to, let's say, figure out where these lines will connect to, I'll just simply show you. Okay, so if all this line still exists, right? Okay, so what I do is I just use the merge to center to, and merge the line. Okay, merge the vertices to one, because that way is one of the way to reduce polygon count. But it's actually would be better that if you learn how to model properly first, rather than using smooth tools a lot, and then this might actually becomes a problem, because then you probably want to kind of optimize a lot of times. Okay, especially with more lines, right, and more polygon count it tends to get a bit more daunting, just trying to achieve something that's optimized. Okay, so this is how the process looks like on the overall. So hopefully you guys will understand now how to use the different viewport and also ways to do a bit organic shape. So this will be something that will be helpful for you to dealing with like this kind of object. Right, so if you have any questions, right, just feel free to ask me anytime if you want to know about this process more.